30 seconds. That's all it took to end it. But the story doesn't start there. It starts 8 hours earlier. Inside a packed electronics store in South Sacramento, 41 people walk in on a normal afternoon. Suddenly, they ain't walking out. By the time it's over, 3 of them are dead. More are wounded. The whole thing is played out live on TV with guns pressed to people's heads and a coin flip deciding who might get shot next. 1:30 p.m., April 4th, 1991, 4 armed teenagers stepped through the doors of a Good Guys electric store on Stockton Boulevard, fire shots in the ceiling, take control of the entire building in seconds. They tie up people with speaker wire, force them to kneel in front of the glass entrance as human shields, and start making demands that don't quite make sense but are deadly serious. Outside, the police scramble, snipers take positions, negotiators work the phones, and cameras are rolling the whole time. Starts out as a robbery, turns into one of the largest hostage situations in U.S. history, and it only gets worse as hours drag on. Hostages are shot, others are released with messages. Inside, the gunmen talk about suicide, about leaving the country, and about making a point no one fully understands. And then, right when it looks like it might end without more bloodshed, everything snaps. Outlaws and gunslingers. Real stories, the way they actually happened.
4 guys behind this, you ask? Well, all of them were very, very young Vietnamese immigrants, tied together through family, school, and the same small community where they come from. You had 3 brothers, Loy Kak Nguyen, who was 21, Pham Kak Nguyen, who was 19, and Long Kak Nguyen, who was 17, along with their friend Quang Tran, also 17. Loy was clearly the one calling the shots, and the others pretty much followed his lead. All of them, all part of Sacramento's growing Vietnamese refugee community in the late 80s. Like a lot of people in this situation, they were dealing with a tough transition, limited opportunities, trying to figure out where they fit in. Louis, the oldest, had dropped out of Valley High School during his senior year. He didn't have a job at this very time.
Bum.
Not long after all this, he had brought 3 handguns. He'd bought 3 handguns. He was still living at home with his parents and 5 siblings in a small 2-bedroom apartment in South Sacramento. Space was tight, money even tighter. People who knew him said that he could be a little unfocused at times, but he wasn't completely disconnected either, though. He helped out sometimes at Vietnamese Catholic Martyrs Church. This is where his family went regularly. Pham, the middle brother, still in school, barely holding on though. Transferred out of Valley High. This is because of poor attendance, and ended up at a continuation high school. Though he was expected to graduate that spring.
Well, not no more.
Like the rest of the family, he stayed in the same apartment and kept too close to the church community. He helped with events, spending time fishing along Sacramento River. Didn't have any kind of criminal record. He was still dealing with the same financial pressure and environment as everyone else around him.
Okay. Well, Long, he was the youngest. He was having the hardest time in school. March of 91, he got expelled from Florin High School after trying to start a fire on campus. Well, that'd do it. He wasn't alone in that either. Quang Tran, he was involved in that same incident. Both of them were also facing a juvenile court date for stealing athletic equipment.
No.
Long, he still lived at home, obviously, and even with all the trouble at school, some people in the community still saw him as a pretty obedient kid. Tran, he wasn't related to the Nguyen's, obviously, but he was close with him, especially Long, obviously. His home life was a little more stable. His family, they owned a middle-class house in Elk Grove. Oh, so he was the one that was acting out and getting this guy in trouble because he didn't have no consequences.
Mm-hmm.
His mommy, she ran a manicure shop. Checks out. Still, he followed the same path at school as Long, getting expelled from Florin High School for the fire and dealing with that same theft charge.
Yeah.
He didn't have any kind of adult criminal record and was mostly known through his connection to Long.
Right.
All 4 of them came out the same broader story. Nguyen family, they had fled Vietnam around 80, leaving by a small fishing boat after the war. Part of the wave of refugees trying to get out of the country that had completely changed, been torn apart. They ended up in California and eventually settled in Sacramento, where by the late 80s, there were more than 10,000 Vietnamese refugees over there trying to build new lives. Wasn't easy. There was language barriers, not a lot of job opportunities, constant feeling of being on the outside. Tran's family, he came over in a similar way, also as boat people, and they settled in that same community. The group itself came together pretty naturally. The brothers, they were already tied together, clearly.
Right.
Tran came in through school. They all moved through the same circles, church, school, and local Vietnamese community. I mean, yeah. On top of that, they were involved with the Oriental Boys, which was a youth gang made up of immigrant kids who felt shut out and frustrated. It's a common theme.
Right.
So you had this mix of everyday life, church, fishing trips, hanging out, layered with gang ties, and the pressure of trying to grow up in a place that don't feel like it was built for him. That's because it wasn't.
Take a back look at why this all happened. It really comes down to a mix of frustration, bad decisions, and a feeling that things just weren't going anywhere for them. Sacramento County Sheriff Glenn Craig, he later pointed straight at that. He said the gunmen just unhappy with their lives.
That's what happens.
You got unemployment, getting kicked out of school for things like arson, theft.
I'm so unhappy that I literally am the reason that I got kicked out of school.
And on top of that, the bigger picture of being young immigrants trying to figure things out after fleeing Vietnam. What are they going to do? This is all just stacked up on their small little heads. At some point, they had the idea that the fastest way out, money. And the way to get it, robbery.
I mean, just not working for it or anything.
Right.
Just steal it.
Their plan was to hit an electronics store, grab what they could, and use that to fund getting out of the country. Later on, their demands made it pretty clear they wanted to get to Thailand. And there's even some indication that they were even thinking about reconnecting with anti-Viet Cong efforts. Oh. In the weeks leading up, they actually put some thought into what they were going to do. Loy Kak Nguyen was 21 and clearly the one leading this. He went out, bought 3 handguns, each for about $300.
Where are you getting $900?
Right. So he's got $900 and you're bitching about money. Well, top of all that, the group picked up a shotgun. So by the time they were ready, they were walking in with 3 pistols and a shotgun.
Yes. Yep. Checks out.
They were walking in with 3 knives. They lived about a half a mile from the target. Wow. Which was the Good Guys electronics store at 7020 Stockton Boulevard in South Sacramento. DVDs. So they already knew the very area, and they knew it very well. They didn't need some elaborate surveillance plan. They just relied on what they knew. The store itself made sense to them. It was packed with expensive stuff like TVs, DVDs.
Not yet.
Right, and stereos. And the kind of place where you could grab value and you can grab it fast.
Yes.
The idea, simple, at least at the start. Go in, move quickly, take what they could, get out before things get complicated. But that's even rough back then. Everything was bulky.
Well,
You weren't getting anything tiny.
you want a stereo? Okay, you got fucking 3 guys to carry it out for you?
Jeez. To get out before things got complicated, that's what they said. But they also had a backup plan.
Did they?
Something went wrong or the police showed up, they were ready to take hostages. So even though it started as a robbery plan, they were already thinking a step ahead about how to handle everything if shit didn't go their way. And that's where things really start to shift from a bad idea into something a lot bigger and a lot more dangerous.
Well, that day, April 4th, 91, right around 1:30 in the afternoon, those 4, they walked into Good Guys wearing masks during one of the busiest parts of the day, too. This wasn't just some quiet moment. There were about 41 employees and customers inside.
Damn.
They were shopping, working, just going about a normal afternoon, trying to get the latest Madonna record or something,
Yeah.
Store itself sat in the near the Florin Mall, which was a 10,000 square foot single story building with a glass front and an open floor filled with TVs, stereos, computers. Well, they all pulled up in a 1982 Toyota Corolla. Wow. Already armed with 3 of those pistols and that 12 gauge. The second they stepped inside, they fired shots in the ceilings immediately and at the security cameras. Whoa. So it wasn't random. It was about control. In a matter of seconds, they made it clear who was in charge and shut down any chance of resistance.
Okay.
From there, they moved fast. They started rounding up everyone and pushing them toward the front of the store, right up against those glass doors where anyone outside could see them. It wasn't an accident either. They were turning the hostages into a human shield. Something that would make it a lot harder for the Popo to act if things escalated, and they would. At the same time, they told everyone this was a robbery and made it clear they expected complete compliance. Then they started tying people up. They grabbed whatever they could find in the store, electrical cords, speaker wire, used it to bind the hostages' hands behind their backs.
Huh.
It was quick, rough, and effective.
Right.
Just a few minutes, what had been a normal, busy electronics store turned into a controlled scene, tense, quiet, and completely at the mercy of 4 armed immigrant teenagers who had just taken over the entire place.
Nothing to lose.
1:33 p.m., the 911 call finally comes in, and What's kind of sucks for these guys is the sheriff department is already gearing up for something else.
Oh.
They were getting ready to carry out a planned drug raid, so they weren't starting from scratch. They already had all their equipment.
Oh, no.
Second the call hits, everything shifts. They said, "No, you drug dealer guy, whoever they are,
Yeah.
they're fucking lucky."
Mm.
They start paging off duty team members, pulling people in fast, and redirecting all that momentum straight toward the electronics store. Along with them, the critical incident negotiations team, or CINT, it's brought in, and pretty quickly you got a mix of local, state law enforcement all moving toward the same scene. FBI's like, what about us?
Right,
no, man, you stay away.
Yeah,
this is before Waco and that still.
Right.
So,
while all this is happening, word spreads quickly. Media shows up almost immediately. News crews start flooding the area, setting up cameras, going live as things unfolds in real time. The layout, of the store, it makes it easy for them to. Those big glass front doors give a clear view straight inside. And what they capture is hard to miss.
well, if you're looking at if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the screenshot of the front doors of the place.
You can actually see the gunmen lining hostages up right there at the entrance, using them as human shields. So,
well, it's not really a human shield if you're looking at the thing, because it could easily be taken out.
Right. So now this isn't just a police situation anymore. No, it's being broadcast throughout the whole country. Cameras pointing directly into the middle of the standoff.
Ooh.
Inside that very store, the people taken hostage were packed into a tight, controlled space right near the front entrance. This is where those big glass doors put them completely out in the open, their hands tied behind their backs. And they were forced to stand or kneel for hours at a time, right where the gunmen wanted them. I'd rather stand than kneel.
Right.
The back door had already been blocked off with large boxes, so there was no way in or out from that direction. Everything funneled toward into the front, and that's exactly where the hostages were kept, acting as human shield once again.
Right.
Basic needs pretty much went out of the window. But, of course, the 8-hour ordeal, there's no indication anyone was given food or water. The only small break came when a few hostages were allowed to use the restroom. But even that was tightly controlled and supervised by the gunmen. The physical strain alone was bad enough, but for some it turned serious. One woman, 5 months pregnant, started having severe abdominal pain and cramping. She ended up miscarrying in the store's restroom. Son of a bitch.
There's your first murder charge if they weren't in a Democrat state, but...
Right. Well, back then, I wasn't Democrat.
Of course it was.
Another hostage was diabetic, collapsed during the standoff. Instead of helping him, the gunman shot him in the leg.
Well,
Wow. Mentally, it was even worse. The gunmen constantly had pistols and shotguns pointed at people. They were making threats, sometimes at random, sometimes directed. And at one point, they even flipped coins to decide who was going to get shot, just to prove that they ain't fucking around. It wasn't just intimidation, it was unpredictable. It made it worse. They also talked about how they'd carry things out if their demands weren't met, breaking the room into sections and say they start shooting people in the legs, then move to the chest, and eventually the head. It created this constant sense that things could turn deadly at any second.
as hours dragged on, they did start releasing some of the hostages, usually in small groups. Some cases, it was part of negotiations we'll get to, trading people for things like bulletproof vests. Women and children were often let go first, which helped the negotiators build some level of communication with them. But even with those releases, there were still about 21 people left inside by the time authorities finally stepped in, which we'll get to. Well, once that law enforcement started getting organized around the scene, they fell back on their usual playbook. The SED team got a floor plan of the building, made copies, passed them out so everyone knew exactly what they were dealing with. Pretty quick, they learned something important. There was only one entrance that wasn't alarmed. It was a freight entrance in the back of the store. Problem was, even that wasn't a clean way in.
No.
To reach a showroom where the hostages were being held, they'd have to go through a fabric store that sat on the north side of the building. So the entry team quietly moved into that neighboring store and started working their way in position. They were trying to stay as silent as possible, but at some point, the gunmen inside picked up on something.
Uh-oh.
From inside the electronics store, you could hear them shouting things like, "Stay away from the door," which told police they were on the edge and paying attention.
Oh.
At one point, a member of the entry team lifted a ceiling panel in the hallway between the two buildings. He slid a mirror up on a pole so he could get a look inside. What he saw confirmed just how locked down things were. The gunmen were directing hostages to stack large boxes against the back door, basically sealing it off. Once that barricade was in place, nobody was even using that area anymore.
Nope.
The team also set up a fisheye camera to try and get eyes inside, but it didn't help much. because how the store was laid out, it only showed a small section near the door, nowhere near enough to get the full picture. By this point, the hostages had already been tied up with speaker wire. They're near the front door, like we said. While all this is happening, though, behind the scenes, the critical incident negotiation team, they're trying to bring this to an end without anyone getting hurt.
Good luck.
For more than 2 hours, they worked the phones, first from police headquarters, then later from a nearby bank that had been cleared out so they could operate closer to the scene. Problem was, the demands coming from inside weren't exactly steady or realistic. At one point, the gunmen asked for $4 million, 41,000 euro ginseng roots.
Okay.
Do with that as you will. They're supposedly in Vietnamese culture, they're like a powerful healing thing that they use. They wanted 4 bulletproof vests. They wanted a military helicopter capable of carrying 50 troops and safe transport to Thailand, but only after a refueling stop in Alaska.
Oh, all right. Hey, who'd do all that?
And even that wasn't consistent, though. Their demand shifted throughout the standoff, which made negotiations even harder. There wasn't a clear, stable endpoint to work with. What do you guys want for real?
Come on, guys.
There is one thing they didn't waver on, though. They wanted those four bulletproof vests, I guess. That stayed consistent the whole time. Early on, the negotiators tried to use that to their advantage. They worked out a deal where 1 vest would be traded for the release of 9 hostages. But when it actually happened, only 3 people ended up coming out at first.
Oh. Wow, the officer who delivered that very first vest went to some lengths to show that he was not a threat. He stripped down to his underwear before approaching, just to make it clear he wasn't carrying anything. Inside the store, Loy Nguyen sent a woman out to get the vest, but not without pressure. He told her if she didn't come back with it, he would shoot her children. She went, got the vest, and of course came back.
Right.
And those 3 were the first hostages released. So that worked out.
Girl.
That exchange did more than just get people out. It gave police their first real insight into what was happening.
What's going on in there? How many guys are there? Right. What do they have?
One of the released hostages explained that the shots heard earlier weren't aimed at people. The gunmen had been shooting at the store's security cameras. And up to that point, no hostages had been hurt. But not long after that, more gunfire was heard. But again, it wasn't directed at anyone. They were testing the vest that they had just received.
Smart, I guess.
Oh, wow. Damn. About an hour later, they released another woman and her 3 children. And then, 8:20 p.m., an 8th hostage let go, carrying a message from inside that made things more serious. The gunmen were saying they're about to start shooting the remaining hostages if you guys don't stop fucking around. At one point during all this, it looked like there might be a way out. The leader, calling himself Tai, was later identified as Louis Nguyen. He told negotiators he was willing to surrender, but there was a catch. He wanted to keep his bulletproof vests and his weapons while in prison.
Guy.
Yeah.
Guy, what are we doing here?
He's telling him yes.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Cool, bud.
Okay, come on.
All right. The negotiator tried to keep things moving, telling him he'd likely get a short sentence and that his vests and guns will be returned after he got, no, you dumbass, to say yeah.
Right.
Would that be lying, though? You can lie.
Right. He's not under trial or arrest or anything right here. Yeah, come on out. We'll let you have your vest in jail and your pistol.
Right. You can get them all back when you get out, bud. You won't be in all that long. Just a couple days. Loy?
No, I wouldn't even tell him that.
Right.
I'd say you get to keep him while you're in prison.
Right. Yeah, bud. All you want.
Go ahead.
You can even act like a prison guard.
Right.
Loy, well, he actually paused. And he talked it over with the others, like he was going to actually do this.
He's like, guys, guess what?
Right. They're gonna let me do it. For a moment, it felt like things might settle down. Officers on the outside thought they might be getting close to a negotiated end. But when Loy came back on the line, he said he's on board with the deal, but the others weren't. Oh.
They're like, hey, man, what about us when you only have the 1 vest?
Right. Look at Loy. What a piece of shit.
Right.
Then everything shifted. The phone went dead. Negotiators tried to call back. First attempt, busy. Second try, someone else answered. A voice. He identified himself as numero uno, number 1. Later confirmed to me, Long Thak Nguyen. He said he was now in charge. He took over. He said, I am in charge now.
I'm the head robber now.
From that point on, whatever stability had been started fell apart. The tone changed. Control inside the store shifted. And not long after, more shots rang out. Again, aimed at the store's security cameras.
How many of these security cameras are there, and why can't they hit them?
But this is signaling that things were heading in a much more dangerous direction.
That's because around 9 p.m., things take a sharp turn for the worse. Long Nguyen, he shoots a 20-year-old hostage named Sean McIntyre in the leg, then sends him out of the store as the ninth and final person released that night. This isn't just about letting someone go. McIntyre is told to carry a message to the media. The gunmen, they're now saying they want attention on the situation in their home country, and they're claiming this is a suicide mission.
Oh, no.
Police try to use that moment to their advantage. They put McIntyre on the news, hoping the gunmen will turn their attention to the TVs inside the store and maybe create a distraction, maybe even open a window for action.
All right.
But it doesn't work. At that point, the decision is made. The team, we got to go in there, guys.
Yeah, it's time to go, boys. Quit fucking around.
Sniper Jeffrey Boys, he's the one tasked with giving the signal to start the assault. He's already been cleared to take a shot if he gets a clean line of sight on any of the gunmen.
Well, looks like there's one right there.
Right. Not long after McIntyre's release, just before 10 p.m., another hostage is shot. This time, the gunmen force the hostages themselves to choose who's it going to be.
Oh, no.
An elderly man named Harold Brooks actually faints during that moment. He's like, shit. Sheriff Glenn Craig, he later said the gunman even joked about it, saying something like he had just picked himself to be next.
All right.
Long, he tries to shoot Brooks, but his gun jams. Then Loy, he steps in and shoots Brooks in the leg. By now, situation's spiraling. The hostages, they say they're split into two groups, and the gunmen start flipping a coin to decide who lives and who gets shot next. Guns are pressed right up against people's heads. At one point, some of the hostages are put on the phone with the police, and they're telling negotiators straight up that executions are about to begin.
Oh.
Get us out of here.
All right, what the fuck are you guys doing?
At that stage, there's really no question anymore. This has gone from a standoff to something that's on the edge of turning into a mass killing. Not long after Harold Brooks was shot, a second bulletproof vest gets brought up to the front door.
What?
The idea is the same before, trade it for the release of 9 more hostages. This time, nobody comes out.
Of course.
Instead, they send another hostage, Priscilla Alvarez, to go get it. Her wrists are already tied behind her back, and they've got her wrapped up with more speaker wire as she's pushed toward the door.
Oh, wow.
As the front door opens and Alvarez is about halfway down the path to grab the vest, Sniper Jeffrey Boys, he takes a shot. He's got a target, but the timing's off. The glass door swings shut right as the round comes in, and it deflects the bullet. Instead of a clean hit, it just grazes the gunman's ear.
Oh, no.
That single moment flips everything.
Yeah, you can't do that, bud. The gunman started immediately moving, running back and forth, completely on edge. Then Long Nguyen reacts, and it's as bad as we thought it was going to be. He starts firing directly at the hostages who are tied up in a row behind the glass doors. And it's all happening right there in full view of news cameras that's been broadcasting this whole time. And at that same time, Boyaz radios one word, go. And that's the signal. 9:51 p.m. SED entry makes their move, and it hits the door. A stun grenade gets thrown down from the outside, exploding inside the store to try to disorient everybody. In the chaos, one of the employees, Kurt Warburton, he manages to break free and scramble out through the shattered glass door. But inside, it's still out of control. Long Nguyen, the one calling himself number one, is stunned for a second, but not down. He staggers out of the sniper's line of sight, ducks behind a large pillar, and almost immediately starts firing. Again, this time, more of the hostages are still tied up, are unable to move.
This is what happened inside as soon as they raided.
Somebody talk to me. Hello? Hello? Hello, talk to me. Hello? Pick up the phone. Somebody pick up the phone.
Yeah, it's basically just the things. That's the initial shootout. There's like a 7-minute video of more chatter and stuff that happened after that. Yeah, crazy.
Damn. Once that signal was given, the entire team had to move fast. But they were already dealing with the problem. That makeshift barricade we said earlier that the gunmen built, still blocking the doors. It only took about 2 to 3 seconds to push them through. But in situations like this, that's enough.
It's true.
And once they were inside, they were still about 100 feet away from the front of the store where the hostages and gunmen were. The 7-man team was heavily armed for the entry. Sergeants Don Devlin, Charles Price, Gordon Smith, carrying SIG P-22 pistols, P-220 pistols. Sergeant Bill Kelly, he had a laser-sighted HK MP5. Investigators Mike Hamill and Greg Peterson, both carrying an H&K MP5 SD3 machine gun.
Submachine gun.
And investigator Roger Stanfill had an AR-15. Everyone had a role, and they all split up the second they got moving. Hamill and Price pushed down the west side of the store. Peterson and Kelly took the east. Devlin Smith straight up the middle, heading right toward the front where the hostages were. Stanfill, he had to stay back in a rear guard position, covering behind them. And as soon as they started advancing, the gunmen opened fire. It wasn't just aimed at the officers. No, shots were going toward the hostages as well. In the middle of all this, Peterson hit a snag. Literally. He stepped on the wire that had been tied to the female hostage sent out to get the second vest. And at that exact moment, officers outside pulled her to safety. And the tension on the line yanked Peterson's feet right out from under him. He went down hard, falling backward, just as a shotgun blast tore through the exact spot where he had just been standing.
Saved his life and they didn't even know it.
Wow. For a moment, the rest of the team thought he had taken that blast straight to the face. They're like, oh, shit.
But for Peterson, his sake, he wasn't out. As he started getting back up, Devin and Kelly moved to flank the suspect with the shotgun. The gunman fired again, trying to keep him back, but by that point, the team had had him in their sights.
Yeah, it's over.
They returned fire, pushing forward as the fight inside the store fully broke loose. At the same time of all this is unfolding, the team working the west side moves fast and gets to jump on one of the other suspects. They shoot Kuang Tran before he even has a chance to react.
Fuck yeah.
Almost immediately after that, they spot another armed suspect. This time it's Pham, and they open fire on him too. He slips back into the chaos, and hostages are screaming, trying to move however they can.
Yeah, get the hell out of there.
In the middle of that confusion, number 1, or Long Nguyen, he's also hit. Now the team pauses just long enough to take stock. They can account for 3 of the 4, which means 1's still unaccounted for, and he's somewhere inside that store. Right. So they switch gears and start a quick systematic search. That's when Charles Price and Mike Hamill, they come across a man lying on the floor. He's unarmed, but he's wearing the only bulletproof vest that had been handed over earlier. When they roll him over, they realize it's Loy. He's already been hit. There's a .223 caliber entrance wound, which lines up with the final suspect.
Oh.
From the moment the team breached the store to the moment the shooting stopped, it was about 30 seconds. Got a modern-day OK Corral. That's all it took to bring an end to the entire hostage crisis. When it was all over, the damage was already done, though. During those final moments of the assault, the gunmen wounded 11 hostages and killed 3.
Damn.
Of the 11 who were injured, 10 were shot. 1 was the woman who had suffered a miscarriage earlier in the ordeal.
Damn, that sucks.
Others who were shot included people like Brett Soren, Chris Lauritsen, and Kurt Warburton, along with several more. Even for the ones who survived physically, a lot of them carried serious trauma out of that store. They're dealing with long-term effects like severe PTSD.
Oh, I bet so.
On the other side of the 4 gunmen, 3 of them were killed by the entry team during the assault. And 1, the only guy that had the bulletproof vests, he was wounded. That was Loy. None of the SET team injured on the operation.
Look at that.
Good for them.
Wow, 3 people lost their lives. Employees, Chris Edward Schoen, John Lee Fritz, along with the customer, Fernando Gutierrez. Gutierrez's 2 nieces had been inside the store as hostages that day. One of them, Lisa Joseph, later wrote a book called Heads or Tails, a true hostage story of terror, torture, and ultimate survival. There were also a couple employees who managed to avoid the worst of it by hiding in the computer closet. Oh.
Wow.
I bet you they feel like shit.
Right.
After everything settled, the company, good guys, they announced they would set up trust funds for the 2 employees who were killed, and they would cover the funeral costs for all 3 victims. It was one of those things they could do. You know, what's the least we could do after that day? Left so many people changed for the rest of their lives.
That's a dick move not to set up a trust fund for the other guy, but,
right.
you know.
After the shooting stopped, Loy Nguyen, Well, he didn't go straight to the courtroom. He
I
was
would hope not. He's got to go and do other things.
right. He was still in the hospital when he was arraigned, and prosecutors came at him hard. He was hit 54 felony charges, including murder. His defense attorney, Sacramento public defender Linda Parisi, tried to paint a different picture. She argued that Loy had actually been
Imagine being
right.
the fucking public defender. I mean, obviously that's your job.
Right.
You're probably from Sacramento and probably want this piece of shit locked away just as much as everybody else. But now you have to be the one that's, well, basically these people don't matter, and this is why he should get a light sentence or even get off.
Jeez.
Like, come on.
Wow. Right. She tried to argue that Loy had actually been trying to calm things down toward the end. He pointed to witnesses' statements and recorded audio for that evidence. In her view, he wasn't.
Because he thought he had a deal on table to go and go to prison with his weapons and shit.
Oh, my goodness. He wasn't the one who should face the death penalty. And she shifted the focus toward Long Nguyen as the real driving force inside the store. Well, they're dead.
Right.
Wow, but that argument ran straight into what investigators were saying. Sheriff Detective Rebecca Moore laid it out pretty bluntly. Loy was the one who bought the guns. He drove everyone to the store. He handled most of the negotiations. And from her perspective, that made him the most responsible for how everything played out.
I would say so.
Yeah, sorry, bud. You just because it went wrong. Wow, because the case had gotten so much attention, they moved the trial out of Sacramento to San Francisco. And when it finally went to jury, it didn't take long. 2 days deliberation.
Too long.
Right. The 8th of February, 1995, Louis Nguyen, guilty, 51 felony counts, 3 counts of murder, 8 counts attempted murder, 2 counts of assault with firearm, 38 counts of kidnapping.
He should get, just because the other guys were criminals, he should get charged with the other 3 murders of the victim or the suspects.
Right, like the shooter's parents.
Right.
In Oxford. The next question, punishment. What do we do with this? The jury spent another 4 hours deciding that. And on the 28th of March, they came back recommending life in prison instead of the death penalty.
Boo.
Boo. Sentencing hearing back in Sacramento, Judge W.J. Harpham didn't hold back. Well, he can say whatever he wants.
Right.
He said it was hard to even find the words to describe the terror the hostages went through. Then he handed down the sentence. Loy Kak Nguyen, 49 life terms, with 41 of those running consecutively, meaning you're going to die in there, buddy.
You did.
During the trial, more details came out about what pushed the group in the first place. A lot of it came back to frustration. They were struggling to learn English, struggling to find jobs, and felt stuck. Nguyen was the first sent to California State Prison in Lancaster. Later, he was moved to Centinela and eventually transferred again to the California State Prison, which is in Solano. This is where he's still serving to this very day. His CDCR number, J69791.
Well, as for that location, the old Good Guy store didn't just sit there as a reminder forever. It was eventually turned into a Dollar Tree like every other vacant store in this world. One noticeable change was the entrance. The main doors are moved from the front of the building over to the side. Structure is still there, still in use, just carrying on as a regular store in a place where something very different once happened.
Wow.
What did happen inside that store didn't just end when the shooting stopped either. For the roughly 38 people who made it out alive, it followed them for years, and in a lot of cases it still does. Many of them dealt with long-term PTSD. It wasn't mild either. We're talking about nightmares, flashbacks, anxiety. It just doesn't go away. Lisa Joseph, who we said wrote that book, she was also 5 months pregnant during the standoff and witnessed her uncle being killed.
She later the one that lost the baby? Oh, no.
No, that was when her uncle got killed, and she wrote the book, remember?
Right.
There was a different one that lost baby.
Oh, jeez.
She later talked about still dealing with these symptoms more than 2 decades later. She described it as something that never fully leaves, more like something you learn to manage day by day than something you ever really get past. Other survivors, they said the same thing, calling it a horrific nightmare that sticks with them and affects how they live their lives long after it's over.
Right. I mean, how are you going to go into a public place?
Right.
Not knowing anybody who walks in, you're just looking, especially if they're...
In their case, right?
Especially if they're
Vietnamese looking.
Asian.
Right.
Oriental.
Well, on the law enforcement side, this became a major case study. Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, they took a hard look at how everything played out, especially how the special enforcement detail, the negotiators, and the snipers worked together. One of the big takeaways was that coordination between those groups had to be tighter, especially in something that large and moving fast. Yeah, because that sniper should have never taken that shot. That was just dumb.
Yeah.
At the time, this was the biggest Hashu At the time, this was the biggest hostage rescue operation the country had ever seen. While the final assault ended the situation quickly, it also showed just how complicated these events can get. Another issue that stood out was the media, because the whole thing was being broadcast live through those glass doors. There was constant public attention, and that may have affected how the gunmen behaved. It added pressure, not just on law, but inside the store. After this, agencies started putting more thought into how to handle media presence during active situations like this. Yeah, you got a bunch of cameras lined up at these guys.
Right.
Over time, the lessons from this incident helped shape training and response strategies for hostage situations across the country. Survivors like Lisa Joseph even went on to share their experiences with law enforcement, offering insight into what it's like on the inside, which helped refine how these situations are handled to better protect the civilians. The story also stuck around in a broader cultural sense. 2019, it was turned into a film called A Clear Shot, directed by Nick Leisure, which takes a dramatized look at the standoff from both the police and the gunmen's perspectives. Even premiered in Sacramento. Oh, that's great.
Right.
Bringing the story back to the place where it happened, and probably a lot of people pissed. Every year, especially on the milestone anniversaries like the 30th and the 31st, not sure where the 31st would be the milestone, the story comes back in the spotlight. Media coverage revisits what happened, not just as a standalone event. It's part of a larger conversation about the struggles many Vietnamese immigrant families in Sacramento were facing at the time. Doesn't give them an excuse to rob people and shoot them. They were dealing with gang activity, cultural adjustment, and trying to build a life in a place that didn't always make it easy.
In the end, it's easy to focus on how fast it ended, but they were there from 1:30 to 9:30 at night.
Right.
So 30 seconds of gunfire, it was over. But that's not what the story is all about. What sticks is everything that came before. 8 hours where people were tied up, staring down the barrel of a gun, not knowing if they're going to live or not. Moments where a coin flip decided someone's fate. This is where a normal day at work or a quick stop at a store turned into something that you'd carry on for the rest of your life if you made it out. 3 people, they
never
didn't.
made it out.
Dozens more did, but they didn't leave that behind. That's carried with them. The trauma didn't end when the doors open. For many of them, it still follows them to this very day, into their sleeps, into the years that came after. And there's a bigger picture here. 4 young guys who felt stuck, frustrated, and out of place made a decision. It didn't just ruin their lives. It tore through dozens of others. It's a reminder of how quickly things can spiral when desperation meets the wrong choice at the wrong time. The building, still there. Scars, still there. People walk in and out of it every single day. Probably not even thinking twice about what happened inside those walls. But for the people who were there and for the families of the ones who didn't make it, that day never fades. And this is why this story matters. Not because of how it ended, because of the cost. I mean, and that's the struggle with immigration, especially with poor third, fourth world countries like Vietnam and all these other little tiny places, New Guinea and all these, they come over.
Dude.
I don't know. The Philippians.
All those starving pygmies down there in New Guinea.
The Philippians and all that stuff.
Laugh, but Philippines.
Yeah.
Philippians.
Right. They come over and they got a way of life over there, and they come here. It's not the same.
It's also a way of life, but it's also you come over here and you're speaking a completely different language, or nobody's understanding you, and you can't get a job. You can't do anything. I mean, what do you expect?
No skill. The only skill you have is working in a field, and good luck with that in California, because that's already taken.
Right. Yeah, those people down south, they don't claim that shit from you guys.
And
so.
your little,
and all the railroads are built.
Right, and all your little manicure and pedicures. Oh, King Yong got that.
Well, they were already, the one guy's mom had it.
Right, she was one of the few.
Right, so, yeah, I mean, desperation, like I said, turns into desperate measures.
Right.
So, that's
not how you take care of it, though.
Well, I guess, like I said, like we said earlier, their first instinct to how to get money was robbery.
So why didn't they just go in there and try to take stereo equipment, TVs, and all that? Why didn't they just go in there and get the money out of the freaking safe and cash registers and just go? Then they would have to sell all this stuff. Who are they going to sell it to?
Well, we established, probably a lot of people, but we established they're not very smart.
Right. I mean, come on. I mean, look at the stuff behind them. They're all speakers and shit.
Right.
You're going to, what did they come in? A Toyota Camry, you said?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you going to put on that?
They were clearly just there to fuck shit up.
Right.
Obviously. Yeah, the 1991 Sacramento Hostage Crisis. That's what it's called, I guess. You can do the Sacramento Hostage Crisis, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, with that, if you're listening to this now, we just did this live on YouTube where you can see the picture of these guys in front of the building, in front of the doors with the hostages. So if you guys are wanting to see what we're up to 3, 4, or 5 weeks ahead, go to Outlaws and Gunslingers on YouTube and give us a subscription. Hit that bell to make sure that you know when we're dropping videos and when we go live. So with that, we shall wrap it up and for the Month of Michiganders.
Ding, ding.